America's Forgotten Wars. The history and legacy of the nation's forgotten conflicts on the way to becoming a global power. Written by Charles River editors. Narrated by Scott Clem. Financial problems. Democracy has a great deal of good in it. The mass of mankind under that enjoys a precious degree of liberty and happiness. It has its evils, too, the principal of which is the turbulence to which it is subject. But weigh this against the oppressions of monarchy, and it becomes nothing. Thomas Jefferson. When news of Yorktown reached London near the end of 1781, popular support for the war plummeted. Before fighting resumed in 1782, Parliament had undergone a shift in power that stressed making peace. In April 1782, the House of Commons voted to end the war. As a result, the fighting in North America ended. However, the British would come to fight the French in Europe and the West Indies until the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783, ending all hostilities. The British also signed separate treaties with France and Spain at that time. The most ironic aspect of the Treaty of Paris is that, despite helping turn the tide of the Revolution, and despite the fact the treaty was negotiated in its capital, the French ended up playing a relatively limited role in negotiating the treaty. Unbeknownst to the French, shortly after Yorktown, the British and Americans began conducting secret negotiations amongst themselves. While the Americans thought that John would make a good negotiator to begin the long process of brokering peace with England, the French were not so sure. They insisted that the American government send other men whom they found more socially acceptable to join the stay at Adams. To that end, the tactful John Jay joined Franklin and Adams in France, and together the three tried to open negotiations. However, Jay and Adams soon realized that the French were not that keen on having America reunite with their perpetual enemy. It became apparent that whenever a French minister became involved in the process, negotiations slowed and even stalled entirely. So, against the advice of Franklin, the two men circumvented the French and began talking directly to the British commissioners. Thus, the American delegation in France waited until the British and Americans had resolved much of their peace terms before informing the French. France was irate once it realized what the Americans had done, even with Franklin trying to soothe nerves and spin the events like a political operative. But by then it was too late for the French. Despite indebting itself to the tune of the modern-day equivalent of hundreds of billions of dollars, France wielded almost no control over the terms of the peace. The United States and Britain reached an impressively comprehensive peace in the Treaty of Paris. Among the important terms of the treaty, Britain recognized the colonies as free and relinquished territorial claims to them. The two sides then negotiated the boundaries that separated the United States.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?